Rugby Club. And you know what? John Layfield, that man sucks!
I mean, if it's a choice between Leinster and the Bulls, even if a Munster man wants Leinster to win, I don't want the South Africans to win anything, you know.
This is the Rugby Odds, where an unlikely pundit panel of a wordsmith, a WWE legend, a rugby star, and a supermodel scour the globe, seeking best bets and bad behavior. Are you not entertained?
Yeah, you're right. Yes, but let's hold on, okay? We got to temper it a little bit because we have to get to the show. And in the sponsor opportunity green room is WWE wrestling god turned rugby advocate John Bradshaw Layfield with himself. Because King Gift Egbelu and his proxy, Steve Lewis, are technologically AWOL. Doesn't matter, though, because any idiot can make a great show from what's on the Your Company Name Here slate. Look at it, feel it, revel in it. Plus, we have gorgeous George Hook, the Irish rugby legend, calling in again from Dublin. So, John, 55-34, a good week for us. And again, you were on top of the table. You were, you were 19-12 last week. That means you're the table leader for like 5 weeks running right now. Congratulations.
To be expected.
Maybe to some in your neck of the woods, but nowhere else are they expecting you to come out with those kinds of numbers. But I
no, because I don't know anybody in Hoboken, New Jersey, where you live, so I don't care about your neck of the woods. It's not even woods.
Is that how you say it? Is that how you say it? Hoboken?
Yeah, Hoboken. Nobody cares how you say it because nobody goes there except for bums and live in the swamp.
I'll remind you that one of the
You're
greatest.
there with a bunch of Jersey
made.
rats. Jersey rats. You might get an MLR team there because you killed the one in New York because you were the commentator, and so might get the Jersey rats.
I could, you are some. That's what you are. All right, so Gift can't be with us right now. He's sorting out some technological difficulties, as is his proxy from last week, Steve Lewis. And by sorting
Steve
out
Lewis is getting hammered right now out at an event. He's actually getting hammered right now. There's no technological problem. He's got his phone in his pocket and a drink in his hand.
This is true. I was going to say he's technologically incapable of getting in, whereas Gift has technological problems and some newborns to deal
Gift
with.
just had 2 twins. He does not care to be on the show.
2 twins would be 4 people. Anything catch your eye from last week in the world of rugby?
Yeah, obviously, the Stormers caught my eye. There's a lot in the URC. I mean, the best league in the world by far. That was just fantastic rugby. I did want to point out, I don't know if you know this, Matt, but a lot of teams and cities are very sports-centric. So, like in New York, you got your favorite teams. In Boston, you got your favorite teams. In Dallas, you happen to have your favorite teams. One of those happens to be the Dallas Mavericks, who haven't won a championship in a little bit of a time, but they got a great team this year with Luka and Kyrie, Jason Kidd. I mean, it's just a wonderful team. Dallas has really rallied behind them. So if you want to grow the game, what would you do, Matt? Would you put your Major League Rugby game on at the exact same time as the Dallas Mavericks are playing their second game of the NBA championship? Is that what you would do?
No, I probably
That's what
would.
Major League Rugby did.
Oh, good Lord.
But that being said, you had a good game with a couple good games. You had New England Free Jacks and Old Glory had a great game, 31-30. The Old Glory is a team that wins close games, I believe. And I've said this all season long, way back when I thought they could run out of the stadium against New England, and they didn't. They won that game. They match up well against New England, by the way. Some teams have good matchups. They match up well with them. But Old Glory doesn't make mistakes. They make the other team make mistakes, and they beat you on kicking. They beat you on execution pieces. They're a well-coached team, and they got a great kicker. So Old Glory is someone to watch for, especially when they're playing close games. When you're playing a team with tons of talent that's just going to come at you like Houston does, I don't think Old Glory is as good a matchup. But in close games, I would worry if Old Glory's on the other side. Now, they lost this game, by the way, but New England kind of had you kind of figured they would because New England, got boat raced when they were basically unveiling the banner. Their first home game by Old Glory, so you kind of expected Old Glory to lose this game, New England.
And New England, like San Diego, just keeps winning the games that they have to win. It's not pretty, but they pull out these games, and they're the two teams that were in the final for a reason. But Seattle, how can you not talk about 68 points that they scored? They're getting their bodies back. They look great. And NOLA making history because it's the first time they've made the playoffs in the MLR. And they're an original team. So hats off to Tim Falcon, Ryan Fitzgerald.
Tim Falcon's done a great job down there. He's doing all the things right with rugby. And when we talk about what things people are doing right, he's doing all the things right down there. Tim's a great guy, doing great things with NOLA Gold down there. From what I hear, the Houston and Dallas team are as well. So there's some positive things going on there. I'm just very negative on who's running MLR when you put one of your main games on Sunday night against the NBA championship of the town that's playing in the NBA championship.
That's got to change. I mean, that's
big game this week with Old Glory coming into Dallas. Listen, it's hotter than balls down there, and it's gonna be tough on those guys. Look, I live up in Bethesda, Maryland, right by DC. I know the difference in the weather, and I've been down here for the last 2 weeks. It's hot down here. Yeah. It is hot and it is humid, and they're playing just about 60 miles north of here. It's going to be a tough place for them to play this weekend. I think Dallas has a real edge because of the home field advantage, because of Nate Osborne. I think a little bit of revenge factor there with the coach that used to coach with. There always is that. Coach goes somewhere where he leaves on good terms, bad terms. I don't know how he left, but he left. I think you got a little bit of edge there, but with the weather, man, it's going to be tough on the boys from DC.
And Dallas is playing really good rugby.
There's no comparison to being able. It's the home field advantage. Like Miami Dolphins have. When you've got a running gun team. So it's the home field advantage that Denver has. It's why they try to build a fast-paced team to play at altitude. These guys have been down here in this heat. They live in it. It's hard to adjust to that when you're just down here for a couple days. Look, talent usually wins. So that's not the be-all, end-all, but it is a factor.
All right, let's take a break, and we'll welcome in George Hook after this.
Need a great price on a new vehicle? Sheehy makes it easy. Easy Price shows you our lowest prices on the Mid-Atlantic's largest selection. Find your best price online or at any of our 31 dealerships.
It's easy at Sheehy. Sheehy.com.
If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street.
And again, we have the pleasure of Mr. George Hook gracing us with his presence. George, thank you for coming on the Rugby Odds once again. Mr. Hook, everybody.
Right. Yes.
George Hook
is here. George Hook is here.
George Hook is here.
Yes. Yeah, actually, you're quite lucky to have me because we're in the middle of counting votes for our election, and Ireland has the most complicated voting system in the entire world, which basically means it'll be going on for a week. So there is only one television program that trumps the rugby odds, and that's elections on Irish television. So I'm glued to television for elections. The phrase apparently is, I'm a cephalogist.
Ooh.
A cephalogist is a person who likes elections.
Matt's a succologist. He sucks.
George, there was that thing called the Premiership final that took place. I wanted to get your opinion.
Well, the favourites won, Northampton. It's hard to get excited just, and I'm repeating myself, I know, but I mean, you can only repeat what is happening. Is English rugby's pretty boring. And like Finn Russell has had a great season with Bath, and Northampton just sneaked it. They're the two best teams in England, but that's not saying a lot because some of England's best players are leaving the English game to go to France. What did you think was exciting about it?
Either team could have won the match at any given point, and Bath played heroically down a man.
Yes, but I mean, two things really. Is one, sport is supposed to be about competition. It's not supposed to be where, the form team win every time. So what would you expect of a national final? You're down a man for a reason. Suck it up. You've lost a man. And that's the way it is.
But it begs the question, and we're doing it over here in the MLR, the 20-minute red card. Because if you're a fan over there and you go to, the Super Bowl of Premiership rugby. You're in your seats. You're paying a lot of money. A red card happens. The game's basically over for 99% of the times that it happens. When it happened, too bad. So how about the 20-minute red card?
Who was the guy who married the fabulous-looking blonde actress by the swimming pool, and he got about 100 years in jail? Charles Manson, that's the guy. Yeah. So the 20-minute red card guys want to say, "Oh, let Charlie out after 6 months. He's really a good guy." Deep down, like, the red card is there for a reason. Now, I accept, for a number of reasons, it's been badly handled. I accept that. But the red card is there for foul play. And you go to jail. It's not bloody Monopoly or drafts or whatever you call it, where you climb up the stairs and go down the snakes and everything else. You've committed an offense of foul play, and you go to jail. End of story. I'm not interested in the 20-minute red card. You Americans are, because you basically have a problem.
Oh, they're doing it in New Zealand too in certain setups. Okay.
But don't mind that, like, the Southern Hemisphere has no money. It doesn't have a worthwhile competition. It is envious of the Six Nations. It is envious of the URC, and it's frantically trying to get people to come to watch the games. So don't mind that. No 20-minute red card, says Hook.
Very disappointed. Very disappointed. John?
You ask a question and you get a great answer and you're very disappointed. That's because you're trying to project onto George what you want.
Exactly.
That's a terrible interviewer. I have a question. Benetton down in Africa, they actually did pretty well. Is Benetton getting better? Or were you surprised that the Bulls didn't get them easier?
Benetton are getting better. I mean, that's not based on the Bulls match. I mean, you saw this the best part of 6 months ago, which I still see as the most prescient piece of rugby punditry of 2024. But you saw them improving. So yes, first of all, they're improving. Italian rugby per se is improving. Their under-20 side was really competitive in the under-20 Six Nations. Now, we automatically assume that there is a correlation between the South African clubs and the South African national team. So South Africa win the World Cup, and we also, all the provinces must be great too. Like, they must be world beaters as well. And they're not. Why? Well, we saw the Stormers in the other match against Glasgow, and the Stormers were awful. I mean, simply awful. The Bulls probably, and this has been a problem for South Africa for a long time, since they were kicked out of World Rugby in the apartheid days, they're not getting enough competitive rugby. That's their problem. And they're frantic to get into Europe, and I'm frantically trying to keep them out. But
as we speak,
I thought the Bulls were poor. To be honest, I thought they were poor, which leads me to the semi-finals. We're looking at a very interesting situation. Munster at home to Glasgow. You got to think that's a Munster win. Leinster going down to South Africa. That's a bit trickier, particularly since the latest news is Leinster don't be able to book airline tickets. Their computer apparently doesn't work for airline tickets. So they're currently talking about going by boat to South Africa. So I'll keep you posted on that. But I still think Leinster will win. So you're looking at a major European and European competition, and you get two Irish teams in the final. That's telling us an awful lot about the state of rugby.
George, Leinster had an amazing European Cup. They played an amazing European Cup final, and they came up a little bit short against a great French team. Is there any extra pressure on Leinster that they're putting on themselves? Or are they looking at this as, hey, this is the chance we got here to show we are the best club in the world?
Of course there is. I mean, of course there is. I mean, all of us and everybody on this program has an involvement in sport of whatever kind, doesn't matter. You don't achieve what everybody thought you were going to achieve. And then suddenly you're now down to your last chance saloon, which is what this is. I think that's an awful lot of pressure. I think they're under that emotional pressure, which again, because you're the best pundit I've ever met, you have hit the nail on the head. For Leinster, it's a psychological problem. I don't think it's a rugby problem.
George, the URC, to me, it's the best league in the world. Do you feel the same way? Do you think that when you talk about the rugby decline, and I think the same thing globally, is this a chance to stem that decline? Is this a chance for rugby to be a rebirth, at least of what they're doing now with the two hemispheres and all the different countries?
Yeah, I'm still not sold on the South Africans, all right? But there's something else happening, which, forgive me for diverting, what's happening in France is really interesting because La Rochelle have made a late run.
Yeah.
They beat Racing at the weekend. Now, French are slightly different because they're French. They don't have a semi-final. They have top 6. The top 2 get a free pass to the semi-final, and then the other 4. But La Rochelle are in that other 4, and they're coming good at the right time. And I think the word is a francophile. I think I'm a francophile where rugby is concerned. So I'm really interested in that. The answer to John's question is yes, the URC is very important.
If Leinster wins and Munster wins, which I think they will as well, but I think both teams should win. You never know. It's sport. There's pros on both sides of the ball. How big is this going to be in Ireland for this game, Munster versus Leinster for the championship?
Well, I mean, see, the things you got to remember, these two teams have been playing each other in competitive rugby for over a century, right? Now, the only difference was in the old amateur days, like there was 250 people watching the match. Now it's going to be 50,000 people watching the match. But it would be you couldn't deny it'd be a pretty special game. This wouldn't be the first one, but it'd be pretty special.
All right. On that note, I want to thank you again, Mr. George Hook, for coming on the Rugby Odds. Thank you, George. Thank you, George.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, sir. So you don't want Leinster to lose to the Bulls as a Munster man?
I mean, if it's a choice between Leinster and the Bulls, even though a Munster man wants Leinster to win, I don't want the South Africans to win anything, you know.
You need your cleats? You need them tomorrow? If you order today by 3 p.m. New York time or noon LA time, they can have them to you tomorrow. Young, old, male, female, if you're playing on turf, if you're playing on grass, if you're playing in the rain, you're playing in the heat, they've got you covered. RugbyNow.com. Go there now.
And we're back, and it's always great having George on. And Gift looks like he's not going to be able to join us, but he is getting us his picks. So let's get right to it.
Do you write down dumb questions just to ask George?
They come naturally to me, John.
It just doesn't seem possible to be dumber and dumber every week.
Oh, let's tune in next week and find out if that's the case, shall we? But in the meantime,
just curious.
We've got the URC. We've got the semifinals. And as we talked about with George, it could end up in an all-Irish derby, but it might not. What do you think in the first match between Leinster and the Bulls down in Pretoria?
Yeah, I love the URC. It's one of my favorite leagues, not just my favorite rugby league by far, but one of my favorite leagues in the world to watch. I think it's just fun rugby. You know, I love the way you have all these different countries, and I know what Mr. Hook is talking about, you know, being a purist and a traditionalist, but I love the South African teams being involved. I think it's just a great mix between, you know, two hemispheres and really two different styles of rugby. I think it's going to be a great game. Leinster, I think, has a lot of pressure on them, but it's not like they blew the game in the European Cup. They went to extra time. It was a great game. They lose to a team that coin flipped. They could have won that game many times. They lost it. But I think there is a lot of pressure on them. They're going all the way down to South Africa. The Bulls are a solid squad. I don't know if they win or not. I mean, I'm going to bet on Leinster. There's no doubt about it. I'm betting on Leinster. I think they probably do win. I think they're more disciplined, but this should be a really good rugby game.
See, the Bulls don't impress me after that performance at home versus Benetton, where they almost lost.
Yeah, that's worrying.
You know, and they were favored by what, like 25 points, something crazy. And Benetton went in there and almost came. They lost the game rather than the Bulls winning the game. They had two opportunities. They were 5 meters of driving with time running out, like in the 76th minute. Then they got they botched that. Then they got the opportunity again, and there's a kick to Umaga, and he drops it on the number 23 for Benetton.
You got to wonder: are Bulls any good at all?
Right.
Are they going to live up to that potential and perhaps beat Leinster? You know, there's so much here that you don't know going into this. I think it's a really going to be an exciting game.
All right, Gift is picking the Bulls, and I am siding with you. We've got the other match. We've got Glasgow going into Munster, into Thomond Park, and Munster is favored by 8.5. Now, we just got word while we were taping this that Joey Carberry, who plays fullback and then can play fly half, had thumb surgery. So he's out.
I don't think Glasgow can beat Munster. I think Munster, you know, around January, February this year, whatever it was earlier in the season, they had a lot of issues. They had a lot of injuries. They're having problems with everything they did. They've straightened that out. They have become the old Munster that you're used to winning game after game after game. And I think Munster in this game is going to come loaded for bear. I think they take it to Glasgow and take it pretty good to them.
Gift wants to go with Munster, so that makes the three of us all picking Munster at the minus 8.5 points. Let's come back across the pond, Major League Rugby, because there's some key matches going on. The teams have clinched in both the West and the East, but there's still some playoff spots open. Nobody's clinched home field throughout the playoffs yet. Houston's close, but they've got a big match coming up against Seattle, and it's in Houston. Houston -3.
Houston has not been as good this year at home as they have been in the past. They got a great home field advantage. You know, Houston does a great job. You know, what you want out of Major League Rugby teams, Houston does. They've got their facility. They've got their fan base. They do a wonderful job there in the Houston community. It's also, look, I'm 3 hours north of Houston, just like I'm an hour south of Dallas. It's a lot more humid down in Houston. You know, the game up in Seattle was tremendous. 42-40, Houston had a big lead. They had a chance for Seattle to score at death. I mean, this is a perfect rematch. I think these guys are going to see each other again in the playoffs. I hope they do, because these are two great teams and they play great rugby when they play each other. I'm expecting one of the games of the year, and it's going to be hot. It's going to be hot. It's going to be tough. I mean, this is, if you like sport, if you like rugby, this is the game to watch, because this is going to be, I believe, a tremendous rugby game.
And again, Houston ownership has done a great job. They have turned the fan base around to getting that stadium packed now. That's now become a tough place to play because of the fans. So Seattle, who has a great home field advantage, now has to come on the road. But they looked lethal last week, and they look healthy. I'm eyeballing that one.
You know, though, I'd rather have seen Seattle a little distracted. You know, they're playing a rival. They just killed somebody. But, you know, it would surprise me. But I'd rather see them a little distracted last week looking ahead. You know, coming off a big game like that, that's not the greatest mindset you want. You know, you got, as a coach, you kind of got to get them dialed back and back to square one. That being said, I'm betting on Houston. I think Houston wins this game. I think Houston's probably a little better, but this is a coin flip between the two teams. I think the home field advantage and the heat is going to benefit Houston.
Well, Gift is picking Houston. I'm going with Seattle. What about Chicago hosting San Diego? I know we're going over on the MLR here, but there's some key matches here that we should be talking about. And now with Sam Harris gone, who do you pick?
Yeah, I don't know about Chicago. Chicago looked at one point like they were a top 3 or 4 team in the league. They're looking now like they're a 9th or 10th team in the league. I mean, they've looked really bad at times. They've looked really good at times. I mean, I don't know what is the problem there, but there's not much consistency with these two teams. I think you see more consistency with San Diego, but you're playing in Chicago. I have no idea. I would go. I think I would go maybe Chicago to win this game.
Could be a banana peel match for San Diego.
Absolutely. You're going to go up there and play a team that you have no rivalry with. You have no real motivation to get fired up for. Yeah, it could be a banana peel game for San Diego.
And Gift has his eyes on NOLA feasting on LA, but I think LA is better than people think, and they can be a spoiler going down the stretch. Let's take a break.
From New York City comes America's longest running and most popular rugby show. The biggest names in Major League Rugby, MLR highlights, and big match previews. Rugby Wrap-Up presents MLR Weekly, made in New York City. Hey, U.S. fans, you can tune into every match live on Flow Rugby. How do we know that? Because we're on there all the time. All right, we're back, John, and we're going to Super Rugby. It's their semifinals, and the first one up is Blues minus 11.5 versus the Brumbies.
Yeah, I think it may be too many points. I think the Blues win the game, but I'm just not sure they win by 11.5 points. I'd take the Brumbies here.
Gift is taking the Blues. I'm going with you. I think that's too many points. I think the Brumbies playing tighter than that. I think they're covering the 11.5. Then you got the Hurricanes. This is a great match too. Minus 3.5 versus the Chiefs. You picked the Chiefs correctly last week. What do you think this week?
I'm going with the Hurricanes this week. I think that the home field advantage has a lot to do with what especially in the playoffs. And I think it's going to be a great game, but give me the Hurricanes.
This is dangerous territory because we're agreeing on the Hurricanes as well.
No, you're agreeing with me. We're not agreeing. You are agreeing with me.
All right. Well, the King is agreeing with both of us. So we're all going in the same direction with the Hurricanes. Then you've got the top 14 quarterfinals. Toulouse and Stade Francais earned byes, so there's only 2 matches in a quarterfinal. Toulon hosting La Rochelle. Bordeaux, who kind of dipped in the second half of the season, minus 8.5 versus Racing. What do you think of Toulon at home in that fortress?
I'll answer both of them. I'm going to go against traditional thinking in French rugby, and I'm going to bet on both road dogs to cover. Not to win, but to cover.
Okay. Well, Gift agrees with you on La Rochelle.
Because Gift is a king.
But he disagrees with you on Bordeaux.
That's okay. He's still a king.
The spreads are too high against him, I think. I think La Rochelle is going to beat Toulon, and I think Racing loses to Bordeaux but covers the spread. And now we're at that favorite time of the week for you, John. Our picks of the week. Who do you like?
I'm going with a unique pick. I'm going the URC, my favorite league. I'm going with 2 games that should be outstanding to watch. And I'm going to parlay them. So I'm going to take the 2 favorites. I'm going to take Leinster minus 4.5 and Munster minus 8.5 right now, which will give you a nice, good plus money parlay. And I'm going to bet on both to win on the money line.
I like your thinking.
Of course you do. I'm smart.
Gift is doubling down on his NOLA versus LA, and he says it's going over, whatever the over is. My pick, Munster, minus 8.5. They're going to beat Glasgow up and down because Steve Lewis was unavailable to come on the show today.
You're a suck up. You're a suck up to the Irish.
You just have a parlay for both Munster and Leinster to win. And you're calling me a suck up to the Irish?
Yeah, but you always pick Irish teams. You never pick against them except when you're picking England teams. You pick a lot of England teams.
Oh, so when I pick against Ulster and Connacht, they're not Irish teams? On that note, I want to thank the WWE Hall of Famer turned rugby advocate John Bradshaw Layfield, King Gift Egbelu, despite the fact that he's not here, the Irish rugby legend George Hook, and thank you for tuning in. Please check out our other shows, including MLR Weekly. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube, sign up for our weekly newsletter, and please join our American Red Cross blood donor team.
I wish you gave all your blood at once.